Nice to
talk
finally
to you.
meet you.
Yeah, good to finally meet you, sir. So I'm actually personally excited to talk to you, not just because one, you're a libertarian, awesome. Two, primarily, you are in a winnable race from what you're saying as a libertarian against a Republican, if I'm not mistaken. And so when I jumped into the libertarian circle and tried to get as many people on the podcast as possible, you jumped up with the opportunity and you're like, hey, let's do this. So I appreciate you.
Thank
Uh,
you.
why are you running?
Why am I running? It's a bit of a long story, but I try to abbreviate it. I've been a child sex abuse advocate for going on 11 years now. I was molested as a child. Big story. Just Google my name, you'll find it. And I started out with a organization called SNAP. I kind of disagreed with them on things as I rose in the organization. And I decided to start my own organization to support the victims and survivors of childhood sex abuse.
Mhm.
Um, I co-drafted a bill in Louisiana. I'm originally from Louisiana, and it passed unanimously, which was ridiculous because the whole state's Catholic. I don't know how that happened. Maybe some lobbyist on it back then. I don't know about. But it passed unanimously. It was challenged, through the appellate courts. They would punt it back and forth because the argument was that the look back window. So we eliminated the statute of limitations and we provided a 3-year look back window for all the other previous survivors of which prescription or statute of limitations that had run out. And eventually it got the Louisiana Supreme Court. They initially rejected it. And through public outcry and the angst of the legislature, they reversed their decision in just 2 months. And so, yeah, we got one. It's the law of the land now. And tried to do the same thing in Texas, and it died on a jurisprudence committee's floor. It wasn't even read.
Hmm.
And that was very, very disappointing to me because Texas is all about protecting our children, and so for it not to even be heard was disappointing to say the least. So for this upcoming session, I tried to find somebody, that would file that bill, and I couldn't. So it was incumbent upon me to run myself. So that's the general catalyst of why I'm running.
Wow, that's we went really deep, really fast, but I appreciate you being transparent about it, your background, and what's inspiring you to do this. Because I mean, when thinking of running for office, a lot of people who enter into this race may not necessarily want to become career politicians. I don't get that vibe from you, and obviously, it's not something that seems like you're into. So this is coming from a place of passion. Is that like a good analysis?
At the end of my first term, if my people want me back, I'll run again. But yeah, no intentions ever of being a politician. If I was in fifth grade, fourth grade, my teacher told me I would be in jail or dead by the time I was 15. And so if you would ask me back then if I'd ever be a state representative, I'd say you're crazy.
Yeah. Well,
Yeah.
this is cool. So why Libertarian Party? Because this could be done in the Republican Party to a degree, but I'm curious to hear your thoughts. I'm not antagonizing your decision to do the Libertarian, but
Mm.
for the voters who might be curious, why Libertarian Party?
Well, as a matter again of full disclosure, I started out as a Republican.
Uh-huh.
It's the classic story, but in reverse. Our dad was a Democrat, my mom was a Republican, and I don't like my dad at all, by the way. So I became a Republican just by default,
Uh-huh.
and I was a Republican for decades. I volunteered at the Tarrant County GOP. I ran their IT systems for them. But I was starting to get to that age where I realized that I was a libertarian, and I didn't agree with neither, the Democratic or right. There's some things that we come together on, but
Mhm.
I just one day I decided to free myself to be the person who I knew I always was.
Yeah, and this is something that I've personally come to the understanding that most people generally are more libertarian than they realize.
Oh yes.
Because myself personally, I'm very independent, like individually libertarian. Like I want to
Mhm.
live my life the way I want to live it, have my family life the way we want to do it, and we just want to do our own thing, right? That's libertarianism. And as long as nobody else comes in and says this is how I should live my life, and I'm gonna take that same respect and not tell somebody else how to live their life. That's libertarianism. Like that's liberty. Do your thing. Don't hurt other people, right?
Right. Do you live in an HOA?
I do.
There goes that dream.
I've been to one of those meetings because I wanted to get involved in the most base level thing possible. But it was just the whole time everybody just complaining about people breaking into cars, and the HOA was like, I don't know, the board members didn't have any answers.
Yeah.
But okay, well, I want to talk to you about the libertarian. I'm sorry, the winnable race aspect because I'm looking in the previous election, right, or the most recent one, the primary. There were three
Mhm.
people, including the incumbent who was running. And then it went to a runoff, and the incumbent actually lost to Helen Kerwin, who is going to be your opponent in the
Mhm.
general election. So, based on what you know from a policy perspective, because running in this race is going to be partly with how much people align with the party, but also if your policy touches the person who typically votes Democrat in your district, there's none running, or also people who vote Republican, but your policy uh, impacts them personally a lot more. How would you kind of win those people that are in the middle, kind of easily switchable, who won't vote Republican no matter what, but will vote for you if they hear your story or policy?
Um, that's a lot to chew off there. Um, you know, well, first off, let me give you the background. So, Governor Abbott wanted to pass his voucher program for schools, and the bill is dead now. But it's dead because of my incumbent and several others who voted against it. And so the governor got millions and millions of dollars, a lot of millions of dollars, and he decided to give that money to anybody who's going to run against an opponent who didn't vote for Senate Bill 1. So when first off, I already have the Democratic vote. I meet with them on a regular basis. Their convention, their executive meetings. Um, and in the Republican Party, there's two parts to it. There's the MAGA and not MAGA.
Uh-huh.
If you notice, and it was all the results and the runoff was all based on vouchers alone, and candidate endorsements. The So basically, my opponents outspent the incumbent 2-1, and like I say, there's two factions, 10-1, and there's two factions within the Republican Party. There's the non-MAGA and the MAGA vote. Now, the people who voted against Helen Kerwin, my opponent, agreed with the incumbent, and the incumbent was against school vouchers too.
Uh-huh.
So I got a Democratic vote. I think I'm going to get some of their vote, the half of the Republican Party vote. There's a chance I might be able to convert some MAGA folks as well. And, I speak to teachers all the time, superintendents, principals, and they're all universally against vouchers. I talk to my constituents, with the exception of one. I got a pool of 200 people I vote. people I poll on the important issues. And in terms of vouchers, all of them universally agree, with the exception of one person, that vouchers are bad. I
Right.
talked to my constituents. The Democratic Party's against vouchers. Vouchers is really the pivotal issue in this race. And in my polling pool of 200 people, when I ask them who they'd vote for, and they don't say we'll vote for you, Richard. They say that there ain't no way in hell that Kerwin is winning this. So, I go everywhere I can, town halls, debates are coming up. I go to town halls. I talk to the district attorney here about the criminal statute of limitations. I meet a county judge 2 weeks from now, who's interested in making the criminal penalties harsher for childhood sex abuse. So the things are going swimmingly. I said this on another podcast. I'm like, the election is in November, so I think I'll just take the summer off and start campaigning around Labor Day. But man, my calendar is full. It really is full. Yeah.
Well, the exciting thing is to actually see somebody running as a libertarian, have a strong chance of winning in the Texas legislature, and like, because that I think would give a lot of credibility to actually other people who are in the Libertarian Party, because you're not the only one in Texas who's running against the Republican,
Mm-hmm.
and no Democrat challenger. It's very interesting, the dynamic of that. So I want to touch back on the school vouchers thing, because let's talk to the people who are mostly for vouchers, who are listening to this and is like, man, this guy is not going to get my vote because he's against vouchers. But let's kind of expand on the topic a little bit, because from my personal perspective, right, I have at face value heard school vouchers that I can send my son to any school I want with the property taxes that I'm already paying. So I could just take that money that I'm already paying and take it to the school that I'm going to. At face value, that sounds great. But then you start diving a little bit deeper and deeper and deeper and actually start to hear the arguments against it. I'm like, okay, hold on. The libertarian in me is like, okay, are we going to public allocate we're going to bring the public sector into the private institutions? That's to me where my mind goes, like libertarian minded. But what's your thoughts? Like, if you can share with the people who are for school vouchers, but you have the idea of why that's actually not a good idea, what's your stance?
So my stance is it's not going to be using the taxes that you already have. It's going to be additional taxes, which is like a bait and switch because they just raised our homestead exemptions. So I have this sort of romanticism about public schools. I'm a product of K-12 public schools, and when you go somewhere and you build a school, then comes the subdivisions and the teachers and the parents and the students and then the oil change place, the convenience store, the gas station, restaurants, and a myriad of other retailers, and we create a community. And I think community is very, very, very important. I think that schools at their worst are the centerpiece of the community. And at its best, it's the cornerstone of the community. I truly, truly believe that. Also, it's important to understand that the revenue streams for the schools produce an annual overflow. Last year, it was, I forget the exact number, but billions and billions and billions of dollars. And if you look at the chart, we expect even more revenues in 2024. The budget for schools hasn't changed since 2019, and those overflows go into the general revenue fund. And when you commingle money like that, it has the potential to go up, and it does. It goes to a myriad of other agencies and programs in the state that have nothing to do with education. So, We don't need more education taxes if the money's not going to reach the schools.
Yeah.
And and the bottom line is that you're going to be paying taxes for somebody else's child to go to public school, which I think is fundamentally wrong. And it's also mingled in with the issue of school choice. We have school choice: homeschool, public school, private school. There's your school choices. But no, we need an alternative. No, you don't. My dad put me in private school, fourth grade. It was a Catholic school. He had to get a second job to do that, and I think in our society we want, but we're not always willing to work for that. And I'm just fundamentally opposed to paying taxes for someone else's kid to go to private school. In
Mhm.
fact, I think that the way it is right now, that on our property tax bill, the most expensive line item is the schools.
Yep.
And then it's funded through sales taxes and the lottery. We have a lot of money to help. And money doesn't solve all problems. We have to identify what the problems are in our public schools and address them.
Mhm. So I think.
And
Oh, go ahead.
sometimes it's not the school or the teacher that fails. Sometimes it's the child that fails.
Yeah. So I like where you're going with this, right? And I want to take this a step further because this is a very important talking point, especially for the voters who are trying to make their decision on this issue. Because
Mm-hmm.
from my perspective, the reason people are pushing for school choice, school vouchers, is to get away from the indoctrination camps or the that's the culture war side. But then there's an academic side, which just shows that school districts across Texas are failing the students, or the students are failing, however you want to look at it. The academics performance is just not there. So, is there a way, like I kind of talked to you about this in a different town hall discussion last week, but if you were to be elected and you're in the legislature, and
Mm-hmm.
you are reviewing budgets proposals from various school districts across Texas, would you scrutinize them heavier to ensure that the money that they are getting is actually going towards academics and not frivolous expenditures like a bloated HR department or administration, bureaucracies, and things like that? Make sure that the funding is actually reaching the student, because this addresses the academics portion of
Right.
the school voucher debate.
Yeah, so I would hold them accountable. Teachers are generally underpaid. I
I
think the way that I would do it is like corporate America. I think that annually they should get a slight cost of living increase, which doesn't happen now. But other than that, I think that teacher pay should be based on merit. I really do. The bar is very low, to be able to teach in Texas. And there are great, incredible teachers, and there's others that, I don't know how to say it without being offensive. There are other teachers that just don't do as well as the top performing teachers. I think it would be a positive incentive to give them raises or even a bonus based on excellence, not perfection, excellence.
Yeah. This is the capitalist in me really likes hearing that, because I truly believe that performance based incentive structures bring the best out of the people who want to excel, and the people who are just there for a paycheck, it kind of weeds them out because they actually feel that they're not doing their best and they take themselves out of the equation. So it's like it becomes a very competitive atmosphere. And
Mhm.
especially, I'm with you. I think teachers are vastly underpaid, not just in general. It's just for the amount of responsibility they have of bringing up the next generation of people who's going to be sitting in the seat that I'm in right now, in the seat you're in right now.
Mhm.
These people will be there 10, 15, 20 years who are in school right now. So we need to really make sure that the people guiding them have the best talent, have the best
Mhm.
responsibility, and can take them to the next generation. So when you say performance based, or I'm misquoting, I think, but
Merit
merit based is
based.
what you said. Yeah. So the
Yeah.
merit based system, it would excite the teachers who want to improve. But isn't there? And I'm not sure how much of the Texas legislature is really involved in this. Maybe the board of education, or maybe the school boards themselves. But isn't there so much bureaucracy and administration that would stifle the teacher's ability to actually do what they
Yeah.
need to do to teach the kids?
Well, that's part of the problem, because in Texas, the ISDs don't control the operations of the school. All those decisions are made in Austin. I think that they should be allowed a certain level of autonomy to do the things that they know what's right for their district. And every district is different, has different needs and different problems. And yeah, that's pretty much my position on that. And think about it this way. And we're getting out of academics here, but every Texas high school has a brand new $10 million football stadium. And
Yeah.
what's that for? Well, it's for school morale, having a mascot and things like that, having a team. But $10 million for a football stadium when I just had bleachers when I was a kid, uh, that's and maybe one or two of those kids will make it to the NFL.
Yeah.
So would you consider that an academic program, football?
I would absolutely consider it as part of academics, but and here's why: because of the implications, and I think this is going to get a little bit deviated. This is my personal opinion, by the way. Um, if a student is involved in sports,
Hmm.
at least the statistics that I've seen and knowing what I've known when I was growing up, they tend to be more involved with school activities. And when I went to school in Fort Bend County, you basically weren't able to play on the team if you had failing grades. So it was like a counterbalance. Like, you want to play on the team, you want to excel, well, you better be doing good in school too.
Yeah.
So I do partially
Funny
consider it
how that
academic.
works really good in high schools, but not in colleges, huh?
Right. Yeah, yeah, yeah. Different story. So, but 10 million, you said 10 million per stadium?
Yeah, 10 million on average per
I mean,
stadium.
I can easily say that's excessive, just knowing how business works and knowing how purchasing, contracting,
Mhm.
is a stadium necessary? I mean, that's nitty gritty arguments to for the districts to handle, I guess, or maybe the
Yeah.
Austin. I'm not sure, but
And as if to rub salt in the wound, even though I paid for that stinking stadium, my daughter is the drum major in the band, and my son's the quarterback. I have to pay admission to get into that school.
yeah, because it's operation costs because it's a stadium.
Mhm.
Crazy, but I'm thinking about it back as well. We had a stadium in Fort Bend County. It's called Mercer. It's still there, Mercer Stadium. But I'm pretty sure it's outdoors, so no AC, just the lights, the building, the plumbing and stuff like that. So I don't know. Maybe what would you do about that if you had the opportunity to?
Well, again, that's the internal workings of a district or the state legislature. Um, I don't know if it's a bad thing in general,
Yeah,
because I said I used to have bleachers, Man, if I played in a stadium like we have today, I'd be excited and enthused. I would take pride in it. So I don't, unless my constituents overwhelmingly wanted me to do something about football stadiums in high school, I would do that.
yeah. It's like one of those minutia things about the race, the legislature. I don't want to say minutia. Maybe it's important to people. If it
Mhm.
is, then you would represent them in that capacity. Is that safe to say?
Yeah, yeah, it's safe to say that. Yeah, it's very safe to say that. And I had a final thought on schools, but I forgot. I'm sorry.
No worries. Well, because I'm looking
Oh,
at
yeah, you talked about
go ahead.
indoctrination in public schools. What is the
Yeah.
indoctrination? And do you think that Catholic schools and Methodist schools and Lutheran schools don't indoctrinate our kids?
So you won't find that argument from me, but maybe the people. who who are in favor of school choice believe that it is an indoctrination camp. Uh, yeah, but I would agree with you because any indoctrination. Let me just look up the definition. Define indoctrination: the process of teaching a person or a group to accept a set of beliefs uncritically. So yeah, if you were to put any educational system, even the current public school system, is technically indoctrinating youth, not
To
with
what?
any particular agenda, but to accept a set of beliefs, whether it's about reading, whether it's about math. Like, of course, the mathematics itself is concrete and it's settled science, so to speak. But you don't question it. You don't question why 2 plus 2 is 4 because you are indoctrinated in that set of beliefs. Like, that's the
Oh, that's
technical
teaching.
definition.
That's teaching people math. Come on, you're being
Well, I'm trying
indoctrinated.
to I'm trying to define indoctrination and use polar opposites. Of course, that example is really ridiculous. But then you flip around to Catholic school, Lutheran school, Hindu school, if that even exists. It's indoctrinating to accept a set of beliefs uncritically.
Well, beliefs. Well, math is science, but you know the I and math is science is pretty indisputable. You're just learning a really great skill that you're probably going to use in any field you go to. Um, but you could be indoctrinated, I think, through history. I think it is something else. I think teachers should leave their personal beliefs at the door when they're teaching our children. And we do. We have a set curriculum in the public schools in Texas, so everybody's learning the same thing.
Yeah. So, well, that's good because it's in a way. Is that what standardization is?
Yeah.
Okay. So everybody's held to the same standards as far as like academic performance is concerned.
hmm
So, what are the other topics that you find? Because it sounds like this is such a strong topic, which is school choice, because the governor has spent money, countless amount of money, getting out the representatives who were against school vouchers to replace them with politically convenient representatives to support that bill.
hmm
Aside from that, because I believe there's about 200,000 citizens in your district. What
Um, it's exactly
one hundred ninety four thousand five
185,000.
hundred five.
Oh, yeah, both counties combined.
Yeah. So, what other topics that are in your district that people may not even know about, or maybe they do know about and are asking out of their representative but are not getting heard?
Well, the child sex abuse stuff
Sure.
is really high on people's mind. They want their kids to be safe. Uh, if I get in, again, I'm going to push another civil law bill, just like Louisiana, but we're going to go further than that. We're going to eliminate on the criminal side the statute of limitations for child sex abuse crimes. We're going to make the penalties harsher, and we're going to provide exact absolute sentencing guidelines to include no probation on a first offense and a two-strike rule. Because if we know, I know everything about pedophiles, but if you do, pedophiles, they never have just one victim,
Um,
and they have the highest recidivism rate of any other crime category. And
okay.
I'm sure there's some criminologists that'll disagree with me on that, but I know the pedophiles, and I know that they don't stop. They can't be rehabilitated. I even talk to pedophiles every once in a while, and they say, "Yeah, I don't want to like children, but it's my libido. I was born this way." And but like our party suggests, and I think you saw the melee, that I have a balanced approach on child sex abuse. That's never, ever, ever going to happen. Never. I will never have a balanced view on child
Yeah.
sex abuse.
Yeah, that's a very deep topic, and I think we need to dive deeper into this, especially because this is a high priority even among Republican voters. So these are
Mhm.
people who may be considering voting for the Republican candidate who may not be as strong on this subject, which a lot of Republican voters are actually feel very strongly about this topic today.
Mhm.
So, based on what you just said, very clear cut, specific things that you would probably be ready to implement on day one, right?
Uh, maybe. I can tell
Week
you
one.
that civil side legislation is already drafted, so
Yeah.
I'll be ready to go with that. I'm waiting to meet, with the judge and a couple of other DAs to scope out the viability of it legally. I don't need their support. I need their expert opinion on will it fly. We have in Huntsville, Texas, thousands of people in jail for smoking a joint or having a
Yeah.
baggie of weed.
Yep.
So
State
I
jail.
would I would support letting those people out, and because if you have a two-strike rule, it's going to fill up with pedophiles. But I'd rather pay my taxes to house them for the rest of their life than to you know. Uh, be punitive towards somebody who smoked a joint.
Yeah, and I think that's right there. You even got the Democrat vote too. I'm not sure why Republicans don't like the idea of marijuana being a little bit more free. In my perspective, like I'll just be candid with you. I had a rough childhood, 10,
Mm.
15 years of drug abuse, substance abuse. So this is personal to me. I've been arrested for having a joint.
Mm.
And it was of course, I mean, it was a misdemeanor. It was a possession of marijuana charge. But I'm thinking to myself, imagine how many other people who've gotten caught twice or three times. The judge is not going to be lenient on them. They're going to be
Mm.
putting them away in jail for. There's rehabilitation for that. If somebody wants to stop smoking weed, they very well can. But
Yeah,
if somebody cannot stop abusing children, and somebody's sitting in prison for a joint, and this guy is out here, or girl, whatever, is out there abusing children, can't stop, and they don't have a spot for that person in the jail. There's a, I think there is a moral question dilemma to be had there.
I think it's a moral imperative to put these guys in jail and keep them there. There's with pedophiles, besides their libido that they claim, chemical castration doesn't even work on them.
Okay.
Believe it or not. And yeah, when's the last time you were in a bar at 2 o'clock in the morning and saw two potheads get in a fight? Just never happened. I did see a guy who smokes marijuana. He wrote a 700-page book on how if you put glasses and a baseball cap on a dog, it looks just like a trucker. There's 700 pages of that. But yeah, they may drive incapacitated, but
Yeah.
there's already a law for that. DUI.
Yeah.
And the final point I want to make on that is that marijuana is much less likely for you to get into a car accident. The health effects alone, alcohol is more dangerous than marijuana is.
Uh-huh.
Alcohol use, if you don't get busted driving or ruin your relationship with your family, you're really putting your cardiovascular system, your liver, and your pancreas at risk. And
Yeah.
pot doesn't do any of that. And
Yeah. So
how did alcohol happen, but marijuana didn't? Well, that goes back centuries. Um, and well, at least for the marijuana smokers, I think they should get a break.
yeah, that's legally, but also let's put that into perspective, right? Because I've spoken to a couple other libertarian candidates. One was extremely pro market stance on all drugs, so decriminalizing everything. But I've also heard some other people who've been more moderate and say, hey, okay, maybe let's not touch fentanyl, let's not touch heroin, let's not touch methamphetamine. Let's just worry about marijuana and maybe the low power codeine, make it a little bit easier for doctors to prescribe to people who actually need it. What is your
Mhm.
stances on those type of criminalities of marijuana and the regulation of small minor opioids like codeine or Vicodin at the state level?
Not Vicodin, but codeine, I think you should be able to buy over the counter. In fact, you can in Australia, all over Europe,
Canada,
even China.
India.
You can buy codeine over the counter.
Yeah.
Marijuana. I'm trying to form my answer. Question one more time, please.
Yeah, I went all over the place, so I apologize. So
No,
that
it's
was
okay.
actually a two-part question. The
Yeah,
first
yeah.
part was decriminalization of illegal drugs, the spectrum of it.
No, absolutely not.
Okay, well, that's including marijuana.
No, no, no. I would exclude marijuana.
Okay. So then to the regulated medication, because here's a perspective for you. My mom had cancer last year, pretty aggressive. Like it went to stage 4 within 2-3 months.
Sorry.
And she was in a lot of pain. And so they prescribed her morphine, oxycodone, and they refused to give her a third set before the surgery because of the regulations. So I was watching my mom just struggle in pain, and I
Yeah.
get why they did that because they didn't want to funnel those drugs into the streets. I get it. Firsthand. I get that understanding. But if the people who are on the streets who want that drug, they're not able to get it from the whatever, they're going to go to the black market. So we're
Yeah.
not dealing with the demand when we make these hard restrictions. We're only dealing with the supply. So that's why I was bringing that into the perspective. Do
Well,
you believe it's overregulated?
I do believe it's overregulated. There are doctors, really smart people, went to college for years. They know what their patients need, but every sale of a narcotic is tracked in a state database.
Mm-hmm.
And there are very specific medical guidelines that they have to demonstrate before they can write that prescription.
Yeah. Even the pharmacists are held to that standard too, because when I went to
Yes,
go
sir.
pick it up for my mom, they asked, okay, what kind of pain is it? Like, can you repeat that? Because I'm trying to put it in the system. Like, they're held to the same standards too, because the DEA will come and crack them down. So,
Mhm.
and this is not just on the substance side, because I want to kind of touch on this with other medical things too. There's a doctor out of Houston, actually. Her name is Dr. Mary Bowden, who you may or may not be familiar with. She's outspoken on ivermectin for COVID, and
Mhm.
she's had a whole bunch of lawsuits against her for it. And just following up a little bit about what she's doing and reading her story, what she's going through, and I try to extrapolate that all across the United States, but even in Texas, I think doctors are not really free to practice. They
No,
have
they're
too
not.
many regulations that they
They're
can't
not.
treat their patients the way they need to treat.
They're not. And we lose doctors, and because of that, and that's why there's suddenly an explosion in physicians' assistants and nurse practitioners. Yeah.
Interesting.
Mhm.
So I know, like you can't like absorb every single issue that every single person wants all across Texas. So you're going to be true to what your district wants. But as a libertarian, where do you stand on regulations? In the legislature, would you fight to kind of curtail some of those?
Yeah, I would. It's kind of funny. The Libertarian Party wants to bulldoze the IRS and taxes are illegal. But there's a lot of libertarians that tell me that they want school vouchers. They want to pay more taxes. It's just they're the nicest people in the world. But once you get past the freedom and liberty, there's a lot of disagreement in the rest of the platform.
Yeah, sure.
I think the real cool thing about being a libertarian is, we're all still friends. We disagree. We don't.
Yeah,
If you look at the runoff race, and they crucified each other. I mean, the Republicans will kill their own. I'll give you an example. My new opponent against the
incumbent.
incumbent, they had TV ads against the incumbent with flames behind him and horns coming out of his head. Libertarians don't do that to each other. There's a lot of things that that I don't believe. I don't believe every single plank in the platform. Border protection is huge in Texas.
Mhm.
My wife's, I'll tell you, my wife's from Mexico. She was born in Durango. Came here legally when she was 5. She took the American dream seriously. Got a full ride to university and became a
Ooh,
nurse. And
nice.
she served as a nurse at the county hospital in Odessa for 11 years. I'm sorry, 21 years. She came to Fort Worth where I met her, and then she became a psychiatric nurse for a nonprofit sponsored by a state agency.
Yeah.
And, she saw the indigent. And to me, just looking at my wife is a perfect example of the American dream realized. But there's other things going on in the border. Maybe nobody knows what the number is because we don't catch everybody.
Uh-huh.
There are some immigrants that have the very, very best intentions. They are dreamers. And our national immigration policy, it's not sensible. It's not reasonable. It's protracted in nature. And I think that's, it's just an easier path for a good intention immigrant to just walk across the river than it is to go through the system. At some
Okay.
point in our time, all the time, we give illegal immigrants asylum. So they just have to wait until their asylum is, but there's other things going on the border, drugs and cartels. And specifically fentanyl. So in the early days, China would flood Mexico with fentanyl, and they would smuggle that across the border, and that caused a lot of deaths of our people and our children. We made a big diplomatic stink about it, and so now China imports the chemical precursors to
Yep.
fentanyl, and cartel synthesizes it and the fentanyl. And so they're still doing it again, and they're incorrigible that they won't stop. And I saw somebody sent me something the other day where 95% of all smuggling into the United States is from U.S. citizens. I just totally reject that number. But quite frankly, the Mexicans are a lot better at smuggling than we are. And they get away with it 90% of the time. So it's a huge problem. And then we have terrorists. We have a guy in Saudi Arabia, shaves his beard, cuts his hair, still has the mustache, has a Canadian passport. He flies to France, flies to Mexico, and he looks just like any other Mexican male. And he crosses the border and either starts or joins a terrorist cell. And now we have child sex trafficking that's happening on the border. I disagree with Chase Oliver on this. He believes in the Ellis Island system, and that's really a part of American history and culture, what we did back then. But it's a little bitty, tiny island. The Texas border with Mexico is thousands of miles long. It's too porous. It's not. It has nothing to do with illegal immigration. It has, for me, to do with drugs and protecting our children again. Now, unaccompanied children, they come across the border and black marks a lot. They have a phone number on them. And so U.S. Customs hands them over to Catholic Charities, who is the basic U.S. vendor for, kids coming across the border. And they will call a number on the arm, and it turns out, oh, Mia, I thought you were dead. Oh, my God. Can I have my child back? And they hand the child over to the family member or the parent. Only it's not the family member and parent. It's child traffickers. That's their new thing, writing phone number on the arm. And so, the Texas border is a bad land. It makes the Wild West look docile and tame. So the libertarian position on that is open borders. No, absolutely not.
Yeah, I mean, I've heard a lot of libertarians propose open borders. I just don't think we can get from here to there without addressing a lot of systemic issues first. For one, I want to go back to the overregulation of the drugs
Mhm.
because again, we're curtailing the local supply without doing anything about the demand. So if the demand is still there, somebody's going to fill that demand with the supply. And we just handed all that industry to the cartel on a silver platter. And then we had the
Absolutely.
president of the United States say, "Hey, come on in. We're open for business. Come in anyway. Seek asylum here." I mean, we made the door wide open for the cartels. And honestly, it's hard for me to not mentally go to the place in my head where I think there gotta be some members of the legislature who are actually tied with the cartel somehow, because systematically it seems like we just empowered them in every single step of this way.
Yeah. But to prove your point, all you have to do is look at Colorado and California. Marijuana, even though it's recreational, it's uh, it's regulated to death, and the regulation of how you produce it, and scan tags on all of that stuff, and taxes on top of that.
Mhm.
Californians and Colorado just rather go to the black market.
Really?
Yeah.
Well, my sister's husband, my brother-in-law, I mean, he partakes every once in a while. He just goes to the dispensary. But I don't get involved in any of that because I don't. That's not my thing. So just funny, funny to talk. Well, I guess it's not funny because we're talking about some serious stuff with the implications of
It's okay.
we have issues with U.S. citizens, child trafficking. So you're also running in Texas, which like, this is something I've heard from you 2 weeks ago or last week that despite running as a libertarian, you're still going to be true to your constituents and the local needs of local constituents.
Right. Well, it's a little bit different. First off, I don't believe in two party systems. Washington, in his farewell address to the country, told us why. He thought it might give rise to a dictator one day. And, belonging to a party is not constitutional nor unconstitutional. It's not the law. You don't have to participate in party politics. And with the governor, it's an executive position. It's his way or the highway. With the judges, it's their way or the highway. But as a state representative, um, you have to look out for the very, very best interest of your constituent. It's a representative position. It's not an executive position.
Mm-hmm.
And so, yeah, I want everybody's vote. We'll see what happens, but I'm a libertarian. Used to be a Republican, but I do care about social issues too. And uh, people might say, "Well, Richard, you're all over the board. I don't know what you think," but no, I'll tell you what I think about the different issues. And I'm also after elected, not before. If elected, I'm going to hold quarterly town hall meetings so I can get the pulse of what my constituents think, not what my party thinks, not what the Democrats or Republicans think.
Mm-hmm.
We have a very, very diverse county. Of course, it's heavily conservative, but people come from diverse backgrounds and have different issues and challenges. And uh, being a representative, it's fiduciary upon me to represent my constituents,
Mm-hmm.
and I won't compromise anything. I will not compromise anything that my constituents believe in. I'll I'll never betray the folks whom I serve, and it's a service position as well.
Yeah, it really is, and I think that's a very important thing to for people to recognize. I find it extremely suspicious that there are certain Texas legislative positions that's getting support from financial support and volunteer support from Washington D.C. Big name political activists and stuff like that. So why are they so deeply involved in Texas politics? What do they have to gain from it? These are representative positions of the people that are voting them in. Why do we have a nationwide presence? Just like there's some questions to be made there. Obviously, not in your case. I don't think I haven't really heard much of yours. You're in the Cleburne area, if I'm not mistaken.
Yes.
So to kind of close it up, right? We're gonna put this next segment. We'll put a bunch of segments on TikTok, but this next one, let's just say it will go on TikTok, and you have about a minute to say, "This is who I am. This is why you should vote for me." How would you phrase that?
My name is Richard Windmann. I'm originally from Louisiana, been in Texas for the past 2 years. I care deeply about child protection, veterans, border security, and school vouchers. Those are issues that face Texans every single day. And I look forward to representing all my constituents, every single one of them. I'm not the governor, I'm not a judge. I'm here to serve.
Awesome. So I got your website. I'll leave that in the description of this. So for the voters who tuned in, we'll leave all the other relevant links as well. So social media links will be in the description. Do you have like a place where people can actually look at that bill that you put in Louisiana?
Yeah, I have to look it up, but I can send it to you.
Okay. Yeah. You send it to me and we'll put it in the description just for anybody who's curious to see what would the general type of bill that would be here. So if you're in this district and you're voting and you're tuned in for this, make sure you share this video with other people in the district because it's very important everybody makes a logical and intelligent decision as to who they're going to put in office to represent them because like Mr. Richard said, it's a representative position. Shouldn't be a partisan position, but I mean, it often does tend to be that way. It's just the nature of the system we're in, but make sure to share this video with other people to get value out of it. If you got value out of it as well, make sure to like and subscribe. Again, the links to Mr. Richards' information will be in the description. So thanks, sir, for joining us today.
Thank you, Karthik. We had a lot of discussions, and it's really, really great to finally meet you kind of in person. And
yeah.